there are a handful of Florida opponents that found themselves very, very active in the transfer portal and pretty high in the transfer portal class rankings. And, that's why it's so hard to look at previous year results and how they translate to the season that's coming up. It used to be you graduate players, you bring in freshmen. Now you lose players, you bring players into transfer portal, lose players into portal, bring players into transfer portal. So all this roster movement makes it hard to know which programs will be fortunate in putting so many new pieces together and how it'll work out. How many do so well? How many fail? So you go look at the 24/7 Sports transfer portal class rankings, and there are 6 teams in the top 11 that Florida will face in 2025. This is just the transfer portal rankings. We already know, you look at Florida's schedule and you look at just normal high school, Texas is going to be on there, Georgia's going to be on there, LSU's going to be on there, Texas A&M, in recent years, Tennessee hovering around the same spots Florida. That's just what it's looked like in recent years. But you look at the transfer portal rankings. 6 of the top 11 in the transfer portal class rankings Florida will face in 2025. So this team, what the first thing that tells you is those teams are going to look different. Number 1 is LSU with 18 portal gets. So LSU, a program that already recruits really well, not elite, but really, really well, really good, hits the portal really hard for 18 players. Now, a lot of this also goes into numbers. The more portal players you get, the higher you're going to be. Just how it plays. And you'll see that bear out here in just a second. But number 1 is LSU with 18 portal gets. So a program that can recruit really well, that has recruited really well, and really attacking the transfer portal here. They haven't had the results they wanted to on defense in the last few years. They had to do it for wide receiver. We'll get into that. Number 2, let's just stick to Florida's schedule. So we got to go to number 3. So 2 in the top 3 here. Number 3 is Miami with 19 players. Number 1, LSU with 18. Miami at number 3 with 19 players. Ole Miss is ranked 4th with 29 portal acquisitions. Florida State comes in at number 6 with 23 transfer portal commits. Kentucky number 10 with 26 commits. Texas A&M is 11th with 14. I mean, talk about not knowing what a team is going to look like. Miami pretty high with 19, but similar to LSU, have recruited pretty well and still finding the need to hit the transfer portal. Ole Miss, I just talked about them just a second ago, and you kind of know why they had to do it. 29 portal acquisitions for a team that was living and dying by the portal last year. And they had to. But we know all the defensive talent that they lost through the transfer portal, or through past year's team. A lot of that was transfer portal gets. They had to do it again. Florida State, number 6 with 23 commits. What does it mean for them? We've seen the highs, we've seen the lows, but a team that's coming off the kind of season they had, and now they got 20. They don't have a choice. That's the thing about it. When you look at Florida State, they don't have a choice but to attack this way. Their high school recruiting under Mike Norvell is nowhere near it should be for a Florida State program. And they have to hit the transfer portal to get some bodies on the team. 23 commits. Kentucky, 26. Texas A&M, 14. So there you go. As I said, 6 in the top 11 of the 24/7 Sports Transfer Portal Class rankings are Florida opponents. You go look at LSU. We'll dive into these teams a little bit. They're going to look a lot different, on defense especially. Patrick Payton, Florida State. Jack Pyburn, of course, from Florida. Those guys are at edge. Nick Anderson at wide receiver from Oklahoma. I mean, those are guys that, Nick Anderson was hurt last year, but Patrick Payton played a lot for Florida State. Jack Pyburn played a lot for Florida. Nick Anderson was a great freshman receiver a couple years ago. They got Barry and Brown, a wide receiver from Kentucky. Barry and Brown was wasted talent at Kentucky with their quarterback issues. Pairing him with Nussmeier, probably be a pretty good combo. You can see why he made the move. 2 offensive linemen from a group that was depleted. Now, that's the position you look at for LSU. Offensive line last year really let them down. They had to hit the transfer portal for offensive linemen. That group was depleted. So how is that? That's a stark contrast from Florida. Brings back 4 or 5, brings back a lot of continuity. LSU does not. They had to hit the transfer portal to update their talent profile there. Former Gator Jakeem Jackson at LSU at corner. 12 4-stars and 5 3-stars make up 17 of the 18 for LSU. Miami, of course, headlined by Carson Beck, coming from Georgia. Zachariah Poyser, who we profile, I would like to have him at Florida. Just because he went to Miami, I'm not going to pretend he's not a good player. I don't want him anymore. Zachariah Poyser, the safety. I really liked him. Jacksonville State. He ended up at Miami. 9 4-stars for Miami, 9 3-stars out of their 19 portal players. Ole Miss, 10 4-stars, 19 3-stars out of the portal. So I think when you look at this, and it's going to work for some teams, and then it's going to blow up in the face of others. Florida State's just the perfect example. We've seen at both ends of the spectrum from them. They have lived and died by the portal under Mike Norvell. But it's certainly made some teams better. I do think LSU and Miami are better for it. I'm not saying they're better enough to beat Florida. We got plenty of time for that. But LSU attacked their weak spots for their team with good plug-and-play players. And Miami, remember what we were saying about Emory Williams at quarterback when Cam Ward wasn't playing? We weren't worried about him at all. Now, Carson Beck comes in and will make them a good team. I still don't think it's a team Florida should be losing to. I'll go ahead and put a prediction out there for that this year. Florida should not lose to Miami. But him being in Miami's quarterback room, him being behind center, makes them better than they would have been with Williams at quarterback. So he makes them better. Add in 3 wide receivers from the portal with Bet missing spring. That begs the question, how fast will it all come together for them? It's a high number. I think 19 off the top of my head without scrolling back up for Miami. 3 at receiver with a new quarterback that missed spring practice. It really begs the question, how is it going? What's the chemistry like? How fast does it all come together? It can come together fast, and we may not even notice it. But here's the thing about that, and we'll get into it here in just a second. LSU's number 1, Miami's number 3 in these transfer portal class rankings. It makes their teams better for sure. But when we talk about chemistry, when we talk about relating that talent to your roster and putting it out there ready for games, Florida plays those teams early in the season. What does that mean for the timeline of how fast, how fast does all that cohesion come about? Does Florida catch a break by playing these teams earlier in the season? Does it take a while for those new faces to gel? I don't know if we'll really ever know that, but I think it should be in the back of our heads a bit. Are LSU and Miami teams that get better along the way? LSU's got Clemson game 1, Florida game 3. They need that to gel right away. Miami, Notre Dame, and Florida in the first few weeks of the season. They need it to gel right away. But for a team like Florida who brings back so much continuity, the chemistry's there. I was on Bill King's show on Tuesday morning talking about strong up the middle with DJ Lagway and Jake Slaughter and the running back group. There's a lot coming back, a lot of guys that played together last year. LSU can't say the same. Miami can't say the same. Will it pay off for Florida that these teams had to hit the transfer portal so hard that Florida plays them early in the season? We'll get into more on that in just a second. But how much does it change Florida's schedule? I think I still think they're going to be tougher than they would have been if they just lackadaisically hit the transfer portal. They got better. They got better pieces. They're better because of the portal. Say Miami too, but go to the other opposite. Go to the other end of this. What about? We're talking about teams that got better. What about teams that got worse? Let's not forget about Tennessee losing Nico Iamaleava. While I wasn't really high on him for 2025, I still think he put them in a better situation than they're in now. Tennessee's nowhere near as nowhere near as good might be a stretch. But they lost a lot off of last year's team. So I was already kind of down on Tennessee to maybe repeat as a college football playoff. Contender, yes, you still put them in that. I don't think they would have repeated to be a college football playoff team again. Without Nico, I don't think they are now at all. They got worse. So when we look at how the transfer portal, the spring transfer portal in particular as well, changed these teams, some got better. A team like Ole Miss, the jury's still out because there's so many new pieces, especially on the defensive side of the football. But a team like Tennessee, they got worse. But let's not forget about the hardest teams on the schedule. They didn't sit by quiet. Now, they're not going to have high numbers. They don't need the high numbers. They shouldn't be near the top of the portal rankings since they recruit so well. But they attack positions in need, either due to guys leaving or they just weren't getting production. Texas brought in 5 defensive line transfers, including Mara Watson, who's an All-American at Syracuse last season. But that's the position group Texas hit really hard. Then you go to Georgia. They had to attack the wide receiver room. Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. Zachariah Branch from USC through the transfer portal. Georgia added them to the receiver core. That was a problem area in 2024. Now it might actually be a strength in 2025. So talking about teams that recruit very well, they still got to find spots through the transfer portal. They didn't sit idly by. So while we can point to Florida and say we know a lot about this team, and with the roster staying mostly intact, we have a certain expectation for this team because of that. But as you can see, it's hard to predict what type of results for the team Florida has on the schedule because of the portal movement. Some teams will be better than expected. Some will be worse than expected. You don't know how it all will come together. For Miami, you had a quarterback like Cam Ward who made them much better. They still dropped some games they shouldn't have. Is Carson Beck fully healthy? Could he play at anyway? He's not going to play at Cam Ward level. For them, they hit the transfer portal hard on the defensive side of the ball too. That's where they really got to make it up. They'll take a step back on offense, but they get better on defense. Okay, well, they'll be an okay team. Just hard to really know. Like a team like Kentucky, for a team under Mark Stoops that was so known for recruiting a certain type of player and developing a certain type of player, guys are leaving that program now. Mark Stoops doesn't get the chance to develop like he used to anymore. You think Mark Stoops really wants to hit the portal for 26 commitments? No, that's not his style. Not his style at all. That's not what he built Kentucky on. He's got to do it now. I don't know if he can succeed that way. It's not really his style. Can he adapt? So it's interesting when you look at the top of the portal rankings. What for LSU and Miami, they're better. To what degree? For LSU, does it put them into that next tier of a championship level team? I think you could say the same for Miami, but nobody's going to be picking Miami to replicate what many thought they were after they beat Florida last year. Kind of Clemson's a runaway favorite right now in the ACC. But there's a lot of talk about LSU because of what they've done in the portal that puts them in that title conversation now. You see some early polls in their top 10. The portal certainly helped, or you would think the portal helped LSU.